Hey guys, Dark Humility here in closed beta season 10 with yet another mini guide and demo. Today we have for you guys an Arctic Blast Druid. Arctic Blast Druid, I gotta say, this is probably one of the more crazy builds that is like low-key, under the radar, that people don't talk about as often as some of the other builds. But it's putting up numbers like the very best of them, so I feel like I almost have to show it off again. And of course, also just the fact there's always cool tools from Season 9 and Season 10 that you can use on this build to make it as powerful as possible. So first we're going to start with the stats, then go to the skills, do the gear, and then do demos and show off what this powerhouse monster can really do. He could destroy Ubers. He could start as this build. He can do it all. He could do the strongest maps and make them look like a joke. This is the Arctic Blast Druid. Let's get into it. You might thought that it was a meme back in the original D2, but on this, it is not. With insanely strong Hurricane and insanely strong Arctic Blast, nothing will survive the onslaught of cold damage the monsters are about to be inflicted. It's about to be inflicted on the monsters. Anyway, as you can see, we have no shortage of damage, reaching over 100,000 with pretty solid gear. We have, of course, really strong Tornado, which is good against cold immunes if for some reason Arctic Blast can't break the cold immune. But if I'm being honest, most of the time Arctic Blast can break cold immunity in combination with Conviction Aura, because it actually drops cold resistance. It is a channel ability like Inferno, and it absolutely wrecks. Okay. And you want as much cold pierce, so lots of facets, of course, and of course as many plus skills as you can possibly get. Definitely go on LAGCs on this build because it does so much damage. Of course, we're also going to put in the rest of our points into Vitality after we put in points into strength or dex to wear our gear. And then if you you could also put a lot of points into energy if you want a really strong cyclone armor. That is optional, but I feel like on these builds you don't typically die to the elemental damage as long as you have max res, so it is kind of what it is. You could get higher res, but believe it or not, this build is pretty safe. I'll show you why in a couple of clicks right here. We have an army of summons that we can have at our command just by putting 1 point into them. So, is it really that hard to survive on this build? No. You also have an insanely strong Hurricane. And just by virtue of maxing out all the Arctic Blast synergies, you also have a very strong Cyclone Armor, being one of the synergies for Arctic Blast. So, res is kind of optional on this build, to be honest. Alright, FCR. 99 FCR is really good. You don't need FCR, but it does help with things like recasting summons, recasting Cyclone Armor. It does help with the Gust animation and the wind-up animation of Arctic Blast, but since it's a channel and since Gust is a cooldown and you're moving around using Gust and that's your main form of mobility, you don't really need tons of FCR on this build, but it helps. In a maxed out version of this build, you may as well, you know, quality of life, FCR does help with certain abilities and certain things. FHR is good, not super required, but it helps. Cold Pierce, cold, very important. Obviously, on a hardcore version of this build, you could have more damage reduction, but also very much not essential on a softcore version of this build. And obviously, mana per kill and life per kill are actually pretty solid sustain stats if you can get them using corruptions. On the closed beta, that is often very tough to do, but you can achieve it without too much of an issue on the live server. Alright, let's go over the skills. So, you're going to max out Arctic Blast and all of the synergies, Cyclone Armor, Tornado, and Hurricane. Hurricane is a secondary damage source, believe it or not, that also devastates monsters, super powerful. The Arctic Blast, of course, being your most direct and crazy source of damage. And then, of course, Cyclone Armor giving you a lot of HP. And then Tornado being a pretty solid way to kill singular cold immunes, like elites that just are stacked full of cold res that you can't break. And then, of course, you have Gust. Cold immunity is sometimes the toughest res to break in the game, so Tornado can't help. Definitely want that 0.5 seconds on Gust. Only took 1 point for me, though. And then I recommend maxing out Oak Sage and getting 1 point into all the rest of the summons, just for additional tankage and ability to just do this build without any kind of issue. Alright. And of course now the Mercenary, Act 2 Defiant Sword Mercenary, pretty standard stuff, honestly. That's like our only source of DR on this very softcore build. Infinity is good. Grouping them up with Taunt and Ferocity is really good if you could ever afford that. If not, just give him some extra damage or survivability, life leech types items like he has on the rest of his gear, and he will be fine. Obviously, before you can afford that, you could get lower resist like Act 1. An Act 1 Pus Spitter Mercenary, believe it or not, is a very budget but also very valid solution to this build that is also ranged just like the Mercenary, so you'll also get a lot of negative res with that. But remember, the skill comes in with built-in negative res, a lot of it actually, so don't have to worry too much about early game Cold Pierce or Pierce in general. You might even just go with a survivability Mercenary like an Act 3 or an Act 5 one if you can't afford that. Anyway, we got Frostwind coming in, no problem. We got Frostwind is best in slot. It's 5 to Arctic Blast. It could get up to 4 facets with a good corruption. It even has resist cold, which adds damage further and gives you cold resistance. So pretty hard to beat this. I mean, you could use things like Shatterblade for slightly more cold pierce, but since this build has so much cold pierce built in, probably want more plus skills over the pierce. Believe it or not, the percent side of the facet, in a rare case on an elemental build, might be better than the negative side of a facet, because you just have so much pierce built into the skill itself. That being said, though, either way, getting all those cold damage items, Nightwings, Frostwind, you could go, of course, Arcanes, you could go anything with plus skills that you could get more damage on. If you want more mobility for more devastation, it's even possible you might want to go Enigma on this build. It's definitely an option on some of these insta-kill, jump around builds. Enigma is good. You can use Teleport in combination with Gust to do long teleport chains and devastate the monsters. 0.5 seconds is pretty good, but if you could do teleport chains, you can attack things even faster, slightly, in some cases. You do, well, I should say many cases. Plus skills on the Ami. You could also do something like Crescent Moon. Could help with FCR. Medusa is pretty solid for any kind of cold damage build that needs FCR or wants it. You can get max block with this, especially if you use something like Titan's Grip. That would be really cool. But you could also go tankier options like Gurk, Storm Shield, you know, things of that nature. Spirit Word, Call to Arms, Lidless Wall. Any kind of FCR gloves could potentially be good here. Honestly, if you don't want the FCR approach as much, you could go Frostburns, and you could have even more Cold Pierce. That's a very good option. Skills are key. Skills over Pierce over FCR. FCR can help a bit, like I said. Snow Clash, 2 cold skills, and then you have Res and everything else. Between these 2 items, we also have CBF, cannot be frozen, from 2 sources of half restoration. We actually have 3 on this build, so kind of redundant, but it is what it is. Ellie Skillers, Torch, Annie, and Life Res Charms. Boom. And that is how you make this. Of course, there are several options. You could go a rack on the Snow Clash, but see, once again, FCR is kind of a down priority, so if you get your plus skills and Pierce first, FCR is kind of like a 3rd priority on this build. It's not, once again, Unless you're using Enigma. I guess with Enigma it's a bit higher of a priority, but it's still pretty solid. Alright, here we go. Let's do...
Stay a while and listen.
Alright. After we're done with the Druid, by the way, we're going to give away 2 more gift cards, actually, to subscribers of the channel. D-John, thanks so much for the Prime. Chat, spam those eyes of Xana in the chat forum. And then we'll give one away when I think I'm done with maybe the next set as well. So Lucky Luke does have some more Steam gift cards to give away. Okay. Here we go. That's what we have left to give away, so we'll give away some more stuff as we continue to do these things. Anyway, GG chat, let's continue the video here. Let's do the demo. Let's crush it. Just talking to Twitch chat. If you're on YouTube, don't worry about any of that. Let's crush it. Let's crush the cows into icy, icicle, frozen bits. Then we'll show them off in a couple more maps. I'm actually going to show you off in a cold immune map just to show you how devastating this is, because it doesn't matter if there's cold immunes if you can break them. That's the honest, brutal truth of this build. Notice how taunt kind of helps keep the monsters off of me. But see, I also have hurricanes, so like you could have defensive redundancy on redundancy. And of course, make sure you have your cyclone armor up, make sure you're gusting around. You really only need to do like gust, Arctic blast, gust, Arctic blast, gust, Arctic blast. You don't need to channel for more than like a half second to a second, honestly, most of the time. This is a cold immune. Can I break it? Yep. There he goes. He goes down. No, I will not start Druid again. Chad is trying to resist the urge to start Druid again after seeing this. Well, that's enough of that. I think you guys get the idea. Let's go, I'm gonna do one of the new maps, actually. I think it's Demon Road is what it's called. Here we go. Demon Road's very strong. Demon Road OP. Okay. Way more softcore. So notice that these gore bellies are immune to cold. Look at how they melt. If you have enough facets and you have the full power of this build, it can melt anything. That's the cool part about it. Wow, this build is strong. It's one of the stronger ones for sure. But it's not necessarily the strongest build, hands down. It's not, so, you know. It's competing with the other strongest builds in the game. The thing about channels is that channels are, you know, they kind of force you to sit there for a bit and cast them. That by itself nerfs the build, so But as you can see though, no problems, right? I can even take down a map that's really tough for a lot of builds, like Canyon here. And we'll take it down in a second here. Take it down, take it down. Now take it downtown. I don't know, what does the data say? Check out that far right column on exclamation S10 data. Most of what makes builds fast in PD2, because builds are so balanced damage-wise, is just pure mobility differences, you know, abilities to move through a map faster. They've balanced damage so well in PD2 that, like, that's why almost anything is viable. So what really comes down to, in a lot of cases, I mean, damage is still a component of it, to be fair. But it really comes down to things like AoE and speed. Those are really the biggest things that affect, impact, like one build being a bit stronger at mapping overall than another. And there you have it, chat. This is the end of that mini guide and demo. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Arctic Blast Druid. As you can see, real monster of a build if you can get it fully built out. Anyway, great for starting as well, great for Ubers. Hopefully you guys enjoy this really cool build. And I will see you guys in the next mini guide. From Dark Humility to you, from the Mad Lab. See you guys in the next one. Smash it in Season 10, October 25th. Also, of course, check out my tier list and infographic releasing sometime on the 23rd. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Dark Humility over now. Crush it.